Hello there, folks. Good evening. Hope you're all well. I trust Christmas and stuff got past you, and New Year's and all as well. I hope. I think most people have a good time. Sometimes I've heard some bad news over the festive period for people, and I know it can be a hard time for people. Yeah, but I hope everyone watching this had a good time and a healthy and prosperous new year. This will be the first one out in the new year. So you find me, I'm in El Paso in Texas. Yeah, so there's a bit of going to be a few more American ones. You've seen some US ones popping up. So I'm trying some new stuff, some old stuff, some stuff that I've had before, some stuff that I've familiar but a little bit different. Some that you can only get in the States, some small stuff, some big stuff. Anyway, you'll see it as it all unravels over the next few weeks. So yeah, this one I got given as a present by a rather lovely lady, and this is, hang on, where am I going? Basil Hayden. So Basil Hayden, this is well known. You can get this all over the place. Now, when Basil Hayden Sr. began distilling his smooth bourbon here in 1796, Kentucky was but 4 years old and George Washington was president. Excuse me. Today we make Basil Hayden Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey using the same skill and care that made it America's favourite among America's frontier settlers. So it's distilled and bottled by the Kentucky Springs Distillery in Claremont in Frankfort, Kentucky, USA. Bottled at 40% ABV, 8 proof, artfully aged in Kentucky hillside rack houses. Then bottled at smooth 80 proof. Basil Hayden's, and they always put a registered trademark symbol just to be sure. Sophisticated taste remains true to the old family recipe with more rye than a traditional bourbon and its trademark spicy finish. It's easy to enjoy Basil Hayden's registered trademark any way you like. And the wee bottle comes with a little bit of a belt around the end of it, which is glued on pretty tight. But, it's glued on. You don't want to take that off. So it's got I like this, a little bit gimmicky, but it's quite nice. Now, doing a little bit of digging on this. It is supposedly around 7 years old. And just in case, I have a couple of little notes down here that I made. It's lightly charred. It's not a heavy charred cask for the bourbon. As you all know, I'm sure you're well aware, bourbon has to be aged in new American oak charred casks. Does it have to be American oak? I don't think it has to be American oak, but it has to be a new. I'm trying to think. Does it actually have to be American oak? I must check that out. Actually, I should know this. But I forgot. So yeah, you get it all over. It's about $40 a bottle, I think. Back home, you can pick it up. It's around £35 a bottle, £40 a bottle, something like that. Now its mash bill is 63% corn, 27% rye, and 10% barley. That's what a little Google search and whatnot has led me to discover. So, without further ado, I think I'll have a lead jump in. Now, most people know I'm not a huge bourbon fan. I think bourbons tend to be a little too sweet for my palate. But there's lots of them, and more and more and more coming out every day. And they're interesting in that, a bit like pot still whiskey, you can have a varied mash bill. There are some constraints, but you can have a very different mash bill and use very different stuff in it. It really only has to be 51% corn. So in some ways, and not, don't get me wrong, there's a similarity there between that and Irish pot still whiskey. And I think some of the newer guys are trying to explore some high-rye content. And it'd be interesting to see what they would do possibly if I don't know, maybe they could throw in some oats or, they can do stuff with it. So it's interesting, But this I've tried before, and I've always found this really approachable, really quite pleasant. Now, on the nose, I find this with a lot with bourbons. It tends to be quite sharp. It's that corn, crispy, that corn that comes straight up and sort of punches you in the nose. And I'm not a huge fan of that. It's a sort of corn sweetness. It doesn't necessarily mean that on the nose it's sweet, but it kind of jumps at you a little bit too much, a little bit too aggressive on the nose. This is 40% ABV, and it noses as if it's a bit punchier above that. So yeah, but on the nose, once you actually get past that sharp bourbonness, bourbonness, something like that. Anyway, it's actually it actually develops, and it's more complex than you would think. It's got earthy notes. I'm going to say cooked bread. That's toast. I think Christmas has played a bit of havoc with my brain, if I'm totally honest. But no, it's got toastiness, earthiness. It's quite subtle in some ways. I mean, this is part of my problem with bourbons. Is that rush of sort of corn boom blast, and once you get past that, some of them you can't really get past that at all. But once you actually go below in this, you start to pick up a little bit more subtle notes, a little bit of sort of freshly squeezed orange juice. It's citrusy, slightly citrusy. It's coming up with loads and loads of really nice, pleasant notes that sort of take it away from that bourbon sharpness, that bourbon corn, if you like. So yeah, on the nose, it's really quite pleasant. Yeah, there's still a sweetness there. There's still the bourbon sort of has to be because of the corn, but it's not something that lasts too much. That sort of bourbon blast that comes at the start, and then it sort of dissipates and becomes a bit more subtle and a bit more delicate on the nose. Well, first off, it's bourbon, so vanilla. Tick. You can't have bourbon and not have a vanilla in it, really. I mean, that's sort of a prerequisite. It always has to be there. But this has quite a really really pleasant peach. There's the rye. It's a high rye content, so there's lots of rye elements to this, which are that spicy rye note that comes in. Really pleasant and nice. This sounds as if this shouldn't really work because it's peach, rye spice, black pepper, and vanilla. And if someone set that down on the plate to you, you would go, "What am I supposed to do with this?" But in a whiskey, this is why whiskey's different than everything else. It's just subtle. When people talk about these notes, and from my reviews if you watch lots of them, I don't tend to go into leading on to. I talk about them. I don't do too many, 2, 3 notes really. But this has complexity to it for a entry level bourbon. For your what could be considered your sort of everyday drinker. This has complexity. There's no getting away from that. This is balanced. It sounds as if these things shouldn't work, but it works really well. On the aftertaste, on the finish, the finish is quite harsh at start, and then it moves away. This kicks a bit more than something at 40%. It just it delivers itself in such a way that it's more than 40%. It feels as if it should be more than 40%. I think this at 46 or 48% would be, you would have to take water to it. But the finish, after you get past that initial sort of blast, it's there's oak notes, and I mean almost green oak, and also toasted oak. There's a sort of woodiness to it that goes across a couple of different levels. But again, those toasted notes, and I have to say it's quite buttery. I mean, I can still taste that finish. It's quite long. It's a really nice finish to it, apart from that initial thump. This is a very confusing drink because it's complex and at the same time subtle. It's a sort of kick the door in and then be nice to you. You know, it's like the gentleman thief, the gentleman burglar. You know, bash in the door and not try and disturb you, try and not waking you up, and not, maybe make a cup of tea and leave it in the dresser for you before he goes. It's that kind of thing. It's got a kick to it, but it's nice, and subtle. I'm not disparaging things that have a kick. As anyone who watches these knows, I like punchy stuff. I like stuff with bags of flavour. But this delivers lots of flavour in a sort of gruff exterior, and then it really sort of backs down and is really quite nice. It's I like this. I think this is among the best bourbons I have tasted, and the entry level ones. Certainly at 40%. And I'm tasting more and more bourbons, and I have to say I'm beginning to come round to them. Maybe it's just more familiarity, more appreciation for it, or whatever. I don't know. But I may just be coming round to bourbons a bit more. And with stuff like this, this is really quite pleasing. So yeah, if I have to mark it, it's a budget drink. It's made by Beam Suntory, the Jim Beam guys, and obviously Suntory whiskey. So yeah, this is pleasant. And if anyone's wanting to try bourbon, I'm a big fan of both this and 1792, the other bourbon. Those are my two sort of go-to budget end bourbons. So I would thoroughly recommend this as a sort of, if you're not sure about bourbons and you want to dip your toe in, or you drink bourbon all the time or whatever, it's certainly one that's on the radar. I have to give that 7.5, 8 out of 10, somewhere around that. I don't again. I don't particularly like scores because they don't do anybody any favours really. But yeah, I would give that sort of 7.5 out of 10. At that price, what's not to like really? Yeah, it's definitely worth picking up. So yeah, Basil Hayden, if you want, give it a whirl. It's easily got all over the world. Obviously, it's owned by Beam Suntory, so there's no problems with distribution. They can get it all over the place. So yeah, if you want, pick that up, have a go at it, and be disappointed. Take care. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and comment, like, and share, as Justin always tells me. Join me and Justin on a Saturday night, 10 p.m. For a show. Most Saturday nights, not all the time, but most. Anyway, Peace out. Take care. Bye bye.